All right, today what we're gonna do is work through some review problems for sine, cosine, tangent, finding ratios, angles, and side lengths, plus a little bonus section that we'll talk about. So in this problem here, I did the first one for you. We want sine of A. So based on angle A, we shoot the arrow and 7 becomes opposite. And we know that for sine, we want opposite and hypotenuse. So this becomes opposite, and then the hypotenuse is 25. So the ratio becomes 7 over 25. Now to find the angle, we do the inverse function of sine, so sine -1 of the ratio. And so if you were to take sine of 7 divided by 25, you would get a value of 16.26, but what we do is we round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so now let's take an example for cosine. So in this case here, cosine of B, this is where the angle is, and cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So angle B, we shoot the arrow and that hits the opposite, but we don't want the opposite. So we want 7 over 25. That becomes our ratio. So now, to find the angle for cosine of B, we hit second cosine. Hold on, there we go. Okay, second cosine of that ratio, which is 7 divided by 25. And in this case, we get 73.7, which will round up to 74 degrees. So to find the angle of B, we would have this. Okay, and then let's do one example for tangent. So in this case, let's take tangent of A. Tangent of A is opposite over adjacent. So we shoot the arrow and we hit opposite. And the adjacent in this case is going to be 24. So that becomes the ratio for tangent of A. So now if we want to find the angle of A, we do inverse tangent of 7 over 24. So we take second tangent, 7 divided by 24, and we get a value of 16.26. So that's going to round to 16. And that makes sense because earlier we found out angle A in this problem was 16. So all the A's in this section should equal to 16. All right, so finish those off and then try the problems in number 2. All right, let's go down to this section here. Now in class I discussed how these trig numbers look confusing. Sine of 32 is a number, but it's not 32, just like the square root of 4 is not 4. The square root of 4 is actually 2. So if we hit sine of 32 and hit enter, we find out that the sine of 32 is 0.5299, and we want to round to 4 decimal places in this case. Okay, so we would go 0.5299. Okay, now if we want a tangent of 19, we would find out that tangent of 19 is 0.3443. Okay, so all you do in this case is just type the problem into the calculator as you see it and hit enter and round to 4 decimal places. Okay, all right, so far we've done ratios and we've done angles. So now let's look at finding some side lengths. Okay, so this whole page here is nothing but side lengths with a few angles mixed in. Okay, so let's do this first problem here, 21. Okay, so how do we know where to start from? Well, in this problem, 63 is the angle, and so that's where we're going to start from. And we always shoot our arrow, and in this case, we hit the opposite side. From the 90 degrees, we find this side doesn't touch it, so this will become hypotenuse. So based on what we need to find and what's given to us from the sides, we're going to use sine. So this problem would be sine of the angle, which is 63, is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, so that's how we set it up. Now, in this case, what we're going to do is take 50 and multiply it by the sine of 63. Okay, and we get a value of 44.5 5. And so we're going to round this to the nearest tenth. So in this case, x would equal to 44.6. Okay. Now, variable is on top in this case. I think I overlooked that. So when the variable is on top, we have to cross multiply. Okay. All right, let's look at an example where the variable is on the bottom. So let's go over to number 26. Okay, so let's go to 26. So here's our angle and we shoot the arrow and there's nothing there. So when we miss our target, we say out loud, ah, which is our reminder to use cosine. So cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So we take cosine of the angle is equal to 5.8, which is the adjacent, over the hypotenuse, which is x. So in this case, the variable's on the bottom. So we switch and divide. So x goes over here, and then we have 5.8 divided by cosine 18. So on this calculator, I'd recommend you guys use the ND button, and then we do 5.8 on top, and then the cosine of 18 on the bottom. Cosine of 18. And we get 6.09 for our answer, 6.09. So that will end up rounding to 6.1. Okay, so there's one example for variable on top, one example for variable on the bottom. And again, how do you know if you use sine, cosine, or tangent? You have to pay attention to the sides that are given to you in the problem. Okay, so let's look at one example where we're going to find the angles now. Okay, so let's go down to 33 down here. Okay, so in this problem, here's our angle, and we shoot the arrow, and there's nothing there. So if there's no target, there's no opposite, we're going to use cosine, because when we miss our target, again, we scream out loud, ah, right? And cosine is equal to opposite over adjacent over hypotenuse. So we take cosine of x is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. Okay, so now in this case, when we want to find the angle, what we have to do is take cosine -1 of the ratio. Okay, so in this case here, we're going to go second cosine 14 divided by 30, and we get a value of 62.18. So that will give us, we're going to round to the nearest tenth, nearest whole number for angles and the nearest tenth for sides. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys on solving these.